Okay, guys, thank you all for coming today for ELX2. I'd just like to start by acknowledging and paying respects to the traditional owners of the land which we conduct our gathering today. We respectfully acknowledge their ancestors and elders, past and present, and those who arrive into the future. We also acknowledge the traditional custodians and their ancestors of the lands and waters across Australia we conduct our business. So again, first off, a big warm welcome to anyone that was here last time. Thanks for coming back, and an even bigger warm welcome to the new faces that we see today. So a big thank you for all coming. Again, this is event number 2. It is growing, but we would love you to spread the word and try and get this out there to more people in the Melbourne community. On behalf of the ELX team, Addy, who's unfortunately not here today, Kate from Xero, and myself, we're thrilled to have you all here. So thank you for coming. So as you may or may not know, ELX was designed to create a forum for managers to CXO in order to kind of discuss all the challenges we see in today's world. Discussing industry trends, challenges that we're facing today. So again, that's kind of what we want to get out to. I think the last event, last quarter, was all around attraction, culture, and retention. This one is the other end of the spectrum, which is all about the rise and fall of tech companies in a downturn. So, the rise and fall. I did say rise. Yeah. The rise. And the rise again.
Yeah. Good.
The rise, the fall, and the re-rise. But I just wanted to introduce our speakers for today. So again, closest to me, Paul Naphtali, is that correct? Oh, thanks, I'll take it. Paul is a co-founder and managing partner at Rampersand. Thank you for coming. We have in the middle, Alex Glenn, the MD of Growth and Business Design for Accenture Song. And at the end, we have Craig Penfold, the VP of Product and Engineering and Culture AMP, an absolute stellar speakers. If everyone could put their hands together for a round of applause, it'd be greatly appreciated. So based on the feedback from the last event, we want to make this more interactive. I think we left the questions right at the end. So please, throughout the talk, please get involved. If you've got a question to ask, please put your hand up. We want to make this more like Jerry Springer, just obviously without the chairs, so please don't throw any chairs to the speakers. Please don't do that. Cool. I'd now like to introduce you a colleague and the MC of this evening, Mr. Will Wetherall, the Client Services Manager of Latitude IT. One, two.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
very much. Thank you. Thanks very much for coming. Really appreciate it. And it's great to see so many of the same faces that we saw last time, and also to welcome lots of new ones. So thank you very much. It's particularly funny that no one has come to sit in the front row. We suspected that the seats were too far forward, but everyone's just naturally adjusted and sat in the second row. So if you do want to throw a chair, grab one of the ones in front. No one's sitting there. Just as James said, although my job is to be an MC, I would actually like all of you to think of yourselves as MCs, because I know why I am here tonight and what I want to get out of this evening, but I know that you all came here this evening probably with your own questions that you want answered. You want to get as much value out of this as you can. You all come from different walks of life with different agendas, so please don't wait to be asked. Put your hand up, whatever you like, just share a story, ask a question. I speak to people all day long. I'm sick and tired of the sound of my own voice. So are my colleagues, so please chip in and spare them the ordeal. So regarding the rise and fall of tech companies in a recession, there's a marginally successful American businessman, you might have heard of him, his name is Warren Buffett. And he said that when the tide goes out, you can see who's swimming naked. So my hope for this evening is that we all learn how to not only keep our clothes on when we're swimming, but also how to upgrade our wardrobe completely. So without further ado, I know that James has already introduced our incredibly illustrious panel of speakers, but it would be great if you could perhaps tell us a little bit more about yourselves, what you do, maybe give us a bit of a flavor of a day in the life. Ladies first, Alex.
So, I'm an MD.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Can you hear us okay without it?
Yes.
Yeah. Is that going to work for you?
So is that cool from a recording perspective? Cool, yeah.
I'm an MD at Accenture. I look after a team called Growth and Business Design, which is an art design practice. So for me, most of our work is in vision, imagining 5 to 20 years out for companies, cities, governments, and social services. In value, which is constructing new portfolios of businesses and ventures, and in venturing, which is then building them and taking them to market. Sometimes we do it for those big companies, sometimes we do it for startups for these companies, and sometimes we create venture studios so that company can continue to do it. So day in the life is a lot of thinking about the future of the world in really different ways and playing those ideas and getting creative people to the future.
Great, thank you.
So my name is Penfold. I'm the VP of Product Engineering and Culture App. So those who don't know Culture App, we're a Melbourne-based scale-up whose mission is to help 150 people in their world of work. We do that through software as a service tooling around engagement products, which is you do a survey, engagement survey, but then we've got a lot of slides that goes on with that to really help companies dive into to work out where they can improve and where they can make their companies better. We also do performance and development planning and those sort of things to really help managers become better at what they do so that the company overall can improve.
Thank you.
My name is Paul Naphtali. It was very close. It's not easy. I'm the founder managing partner of a venture capital firm called Rampersand. We've been around since late 2013. My background was in Silicon Valley, working with startups there. I was in marketing. Before that, in the UK, where I was working in strategic communications. But I've been working with startups since the late 90s. We set up Rampersand in 2013 as a passion project, really built around the fact that there wasn't a lot of early stage value-added capital in Australia. And so I was living in Silicon Valley, I was in Mountain View, there's 101 Highway, and there's Google, and my office on the other side. And my next door neighbour worked for Google, and we had LinkedIn and Facebook and Oracle and startup and venture capital, and came back to Melbourne with my English wife and young kids, and I was very excited to rescue them from England. And everyone wanted to talk about property and consulting, and when I talked about tech, they said, we don't have that in Australia, it's not what we do. So it's really disappointing, and I think we've actually got some of the best entrepreneurs in the world coming from Australia, and Didier, the founder of Culture, one of them, and I remember talking to him back in 2012, I was like, what's going on? You've got an amazing business opportunity here, and you really know how to build tech. You've got a great team and a big vision. Like, vision's actually got bigger since then, but it's already pretty big. I was like, where are the term sheets? You're raising capital, and he's like, there's no money in Australia. Sort of gets what you want to do. And I knew a bunch of people with money. I said, what are you doing? You invest in Australia? I said, there's no good tech in Australia. We're doing property and no mining. This is a problem. And so we set up a fund to sort of back the early stage entrepreneurs. So companies in our portfolio you might have heard of the Expert 360, Sendle, Schedulo, Jigspace, GoTerra. We've now got 30. I shouldn't pick favourite children, but what does my day look like? Panicking a lot. But really, it's the most wonderful job I've ever spent in my life. We founders, who are creating the future and saying the only barrier between them and the future is actually not money. Like we unlock money, it's actually people who care, people who believe, and unlock the next believers, whether that's employees or customers or advisors. That's what we do as a fund. Like the movement of money is just one thing. There's lots of money around. It's actually now about saying how do we actually unlock that next stage.
Okay. Just going back to the panicking point, is that like a downturn related activity, or have you always done that?
Panic for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that sort of balance between optimism and pessimism is a really healthy unnecessary, potentially unhealthy balance. So our job, we are really custodians of sort of broadly two things. One is we've got 140 investors. I think people often forget that venture capital funds have investors too. We've got 140, and I know every single one of them, like personally. They're all individuals, they're family offices. So when they give us money, that's we're custodians of that. And the second thing is, and probably more viscerally, is we're custodians. We're very influential on the founders that we back in their journeys. And we have 30 companies in our portfolio. They're doing one thing, and we give them advice, and we give them our best efforts. We have a family saying, which is we're always confident, we're just not always right. And Kate knows. We've got to be really careful with the advice that we give, and are we giving it enough? And every VC overstates their value. Let's be sort of real, like there's only so much we can do, but their journeys are really personal to us as well.
Okay, all right. Just out of curiosity, what sort of companies are we talking about? Like, who do you single out?
Meaning which areas?
Yeah, well, exactly. What do you look for?
Purely, so specifically technology and data. So we're probably strongest B2B SaaS, disruptive digital marketplaces, and automation AI. We have this new area we're calling emerging frontiers, which is sort of code for just incredible founders with big visions who are solving real problems.
Okay.
And so that could be the biggest problems in the world, so health, sustainability we're exploring, or the underlying change the changing underlying technology base. So at the moment we're pretty interested in quantum and obviously blockchain.
Okay. Wow.
What's really interesting is that is very, very akin with the areas that we're focused on too in big business and big government. And one of the reasons why I think there's this beautiful sort of marriage between the world of big and the world of small right now. Yes, there can be an explosion of startup, but also as many big businesses are feeling pretty threatened, they're starting to be quite active in their own innovations and venturing, but realizing quite often they need the neo players and the fast players in order to make a move. So I'd say, equally a huge explosion in marketplace and in SaaS, a huge explosion in AI-related tech, and then the disruptive spaces, as you said, in healthcare particularly, I think the market is really, really active, and there is a great hunger to respond to the disruption that we're seeing. But many of the big organisations just sort of don't know how, and they're looking for help in the answer, and to do it far more venture-based, and also to fund it more like a VC. I think there's a complete recognition that corporate Australia was treating innovations like corporate growth, and instead, the movement much more into let's treat it like ventures.
It's all about culture, right? And the evolution of the corporate sort of mentality in Australia I've observed over the last 10 years is we want innovation by the unit. And we have it innovate, but as long as we don't take a risk. I think we need to look up the definition, and it's not going to work.
Culture is really becoming that key and the key to success. So, culture, and we're trying to lead that with our own, eating our own dog food. The better term for that is drinking our own champagne. So much but we do we do drink our own champagne, and we're very big believers that, and our mission is to be culture first in order to win. So we're trying to do that as a starting point, as well as show other companies how to be culture first so that they can win.
It's obviously resonating. I mean, the meteoric rise of CultureAmp just demonstrates that it's very much what people are focusing on these days. That was kind of the focus of the last session we had as well.
Certainly a lot of appetite there for it, and interestingly with CultureAmp, we're now a large company, global company, 6,000 customers around the world. We're starting to have disruptors come in those smaller startups now who are trying to compete with us. So it's an interesting situation for us to be in now, and we need to actually make sure we're continuing to innovate and think small, even though we're sort of verging on becoming that big.
Interesting. Just, go for it, please.
As you get bigger, are you finding the appetite for risk is going to decrease because you have more to defend as you transition from
Yeah,
attacker to the defender?
it's a good question, and I think that's one of the easy traps companies fall into. We're not, because we've still got founders in our exec team and running the business, that we still have that mindset. It is an interesting situation for a founder to be used to us, be able to go from a startup where there's only 5 or 6 of them. We've now got 900 people, and having our founder and CEO still be able to lead that and grow in his way of working and his way of thinking. So we've been able to avoid that. Where we're running into challenges is now the lines of communication. So there's 30 product engineering teams that we need to be able to be aligned and communicating well with each other. Otherwise, we're wasting a lot of effort and duplicating learning. So that's the bit we're running into.
How long has that taken? That growth from the 5 or 6 founders to
5 or 6 founders. So the company's been together for 11 years.
Okay.
So 4 founders in 11 years ago.
Okay.
We're about, when I started, so I was here, I started 8 months ago with 600 people. We're now 900.
wow.
In my area, in the product space, 53% of the team have been here less than a year. So I'm about to tip over into the mature half of the company.
And how many have been in person?
Oh, about 5. No, it certainly hasn't been everyone. So in person, it's been maybe 10%, if that. But that trajectory is going to continue. So our real challenge is how do we provide the context of an 11-year-old company and where we're trying to head to a whole bunch of brand new people while they're all remote.
So you
Wow.
really you took about you're still there as CEO. You've been there 8 months. There's a regeneration that goes on, especially at the senior level. So when I was the founders are very disruptive by their very nature, and if they get into sort of a BAU, they actually mess things up. They're addicted to drama. It's a really interesting type of disruption. But it's a great time for founders. The regeneration of the executive suite has been really interesting.
Yeah, and definitely matured a lot in some of the new execs joining. So yeah, very much so. And that's to help teach them how to scale. And that's why I came on as well. I know Dave English, one of the founders and CTOs, and we've sort of known each other for about 6 years. And he wanted someone who has sort of helped scale a company like that before, because they haven't done it, and we can sort of learn through it together.
Yeah, interesting.
If we take the risk comment on the flip side, if you go into sort of big business Australia, who's then playing into venture arms, massive challenge and impetus. So businesses that are used to governance and risk committee, who realise they cannot innovate and create spin-off businesses or shoot out marketplaces using that same risk model. And so really that's being much more of a siphoning off of the venture high-speed arms that have their own lighter risk mechanics until they reach a certain stage and spit it back in for scale. It's such an important question because I think for the businesses that don't catch it, they're set up to kill the ideas as quick as possible.
I think it's different in Australia versus other markets.
Yeah. So I have more experience in the UK and Europe than I do in the US. I can't speak much to that. But in the UK and Europe, it's highly competitive. The expectation is constant disruption. The startup voice is very loud, and it's very close to the corporate voice and the analysts that are looking at the market. So even, especially in the UK, most of the big organisations have options funds where they place option bets in startups to learn about what's evolving, and that's very normal. Whereas here, if I raise it, people are very surprised that is a model. So I'd say yes, there's more maturity because of the degree of fierce competition, how many people are sort of able to bridge across Europe and make connections into different parts of tech and then enter into the market. Yeah.
Very similar to what you found when you came back as well, the risk aversion.
We haven't needed to, right? Like we can have a monopolistic, oligopolistic market, like you're saying. We're trying to sell one of the company actually the startup we moved to the Valley with was a voice over IP business, and we've had great success in the UK. O2 is a customer, actually a mine business, 4 or 5 across Europe, in two markets.
So was COVID then like a perfect dress rehearsal for a lot of companies moving into a downturn? Like, was it like a dry run? Like, okay, we messed this up, now we need to get this right for the next shitty situation?
It wasn't in March 2020, we went to every portfolio company and we said, this is a health crisis, absolutely. This is an economic crisis. You're not going to grow, you won't sell it, you'll have no revenue, you'll have no access to capital, it's a fucking disaster. Cut your business accordingly, and we were right for about 6 minutes.
Right.
Maybe if I'm generous to myself, 6 weeks. And then it was so totally wrong. And so the humility that comes from that, in fairness, no one knew. We had to do that. What's the risk? The risk of assuming it's a blip versus assuming it's real. So if you assume it's a blip and you're wrong, you're dead. If you assume it's a real problem and you're wrong, your business is actually in better shape. So we're an early stage venture fund. We invest at seed. We've got 6 profitable companies and fast growing companies in our portfolio. We had to look up on profit books. We didn't know what to make. It's just like, not now. I'm joking. So it's sort of like showing these cycles, like you'll see in TechCrunch and the American Tech questions. What is EBITDA? How to calculate it? Like, it's just Oz is actually really good at this stuff. But yeah, it was an amazing dress rehearsal.
Wow.
We've definitely learned lessons from that. So at the start of taking the culture out, what do you cut when companies have an uncertain future? You start with the marketing budget, and then it's the SaaS budget. And so we did see some people sort of pausing their SaaS budget. So we thought, what does this mean? And so we actually slowed down, and then all the companies realised, shit, we've got to engage our people now and really focus on culture. So we need culture out. And so it was very much us then having to re-accelerate to get back on that.
Okay.
And so with the upcoming recession issues and downturn, we actually got the other part that we actually need to double down on.
Okay.
Rather than go through that stage.
Interesting. We were talking about innovation and disruption, and Alex, I wanted to ask you this question. What is the difference between innovation and disruption, and what should companies be doing right now?
God, I think I try not to use the word innovation. I do in bigger crowds because it's just a known word, but the reason I shy away from it is sometimes it's theatre, and that's really sad. And sometimes it's sort of tinkering with, a bit of edge technology, but it'll never lead to growth, and I find that really sad. Disruption, I suppose, is when all of the basis of the assumptions on which a business is built have been pulled away for me. So the business model doesn't work, the customer base is completely different, the market is different, the shopping in a different place, the pricing model is different. It's the environment where the rug's pulled out that I would call disruption. Most of the time when we talk about what we do, I would use more the terms growth or venture. The outcome has to be some big forms of growth or social impact. That is more important than the fanfare of innovation, but quite often it will require something that is novel for that market in that context.
Okay.
That can be as simple as the business model, or it could be the experience, or it could be the culture that's underpinned it, that has allowed a degree of pace that you've never expected before.
Okay. All right. And you're here in Melbourne on a disruption mission, aren't you? You were saying earlier. I don't know how much you can talk about that, but that was really interesting, some of the stuff you were saying before we started.
I talked about pharmacy. That's also talking about death tech.
Yeah, death tech, yeah.
No, I'm not on a mission for death tech here.
Okay.
We were having a chat because I went out for lunch with James the other week, and I think James was raising a question around where are VCs investing? Do you think they're going to begin to invest in death tech? And interestingly, the next day, my team ran a session on futures, and they do a lot of futuring, and speculative futures is a really important part of our business to play out a whole range of scenarios because it's not one future, figure out the range. And to play with it, they started playing with death tech because that was a really accessible idea to everybody. So to go, you know, in the future, our digital selves will live longer than our physical selves. Let's begin to really play with that. You know, there's more than 20 million Facebook users who are dead. There is a inability for people to close off the wills and accounts of those who have passed. What is the future financial services model for those who have passed? What are the rights and the technologies around protecting one's digital identity from deep fakes when one has passed? Who has control? You know, so we're just playing with that. So I was sharing that story earlier that, yeah, our line of work leads us into thinking about lots of different questions.
Yeah.
You know, we go down the line of how would you apply technology to some of the hardest nuts to crack in healthcare? Or what is the role of technology in sustainability and in changing the way that we farm, that we treat the world, that we understand our role in the world? Just to ask ourselves lots of these questions, quite often tech rubs up against it because there's a capacity to scale that way and there's a capacity to address the rug that's been taken out of most of the disruptions that we see that way.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
And boom, everything went up like 2%.
Wow. That's amazing. So, reading between the lines, this downturn is great news. And we're all going to be... So we actually do better. We're like an underdog. We do better in this kind of circumstance than when things are...
Like, there's macro and there's micro. As you can tell, we're very excited. There are going to be people losing their jobs. There are going to be people losing their businesses, hopefully not the houses, but this is going to hurt a lot of people. And the human part of that is going to be very real. And that's always true in turbulent times. We've had a very unreal time. Like we have record low bankruptcies, for example. In venture, it's been a bull market for a long time. Like we know in Australia, when forests, you don't have little fires, you have big fires.
Yeah.
Now this might be a big fire.
Right.
And this is going to hurt people.
Yeah. Like
you need it.
those pods that open with 800 degrees centigrade or not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't suppress the fire, and B, there's value in the fire, but there will be a human cost.
Yeah, so I think it's a great point about the macro and the micro. So macro, there will be damage along the way, and you saw that with COVID, you saw that with the GFC, you saw it with the dot-com bubble. That will happen, and I think what's really important there is, as us as leaders, how we lead through crisis. And so you've seen some of our political leaders in this country, as well as the US, New Zealand, how they've dealt with crisis in the last few years. Some dealt really well, some fell apart. I mean, you can tell we've done really well, and it has been. And you think of sort of Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, all the way through from the killings in the mosque. Then there was COVID and all of the issues. She kept it human. She really sort of empathised and kept it to that human level, but was still really tough with the messaging. It wasn't watered down in any way. It wasn't a soft message. It was still really tough but very clear. And so how we lead through those is going to be really, really important. I joined a travel startup in July of 2018. Called Rampersand, really awesome travel startup. I went from a pretty stable company to a startup in the travel space. Clearly, I didn't have COVID as part of my pandemic as part of my risk profile when I was choosing that company. But, we and Jason here knows this. We went through an interesting first 5 months of me being there, where in January of 2019 we actually had our record of the month. And then February hit, and we sort of dropped 90% of our revenue and stayed that one for about 14 months. And so, as a leadership team, that was super tough. For the team itself, it was really tough as well. You know, there was so much uncertainty, so much fear that we've talked about before. There was, you know, no one really knew what was happening. There was so much speculation as well, and so much misinformation and disinformation to try and, you know, lean towards a certain agenda. And that, as a leader, was really tough to get through, because we always knew that coming out of it, there would be a big demand for travel. Because we've got, at Rampersand, we have stacks of data. We knew that when the SARS pandemic happened and when the MERS pandemic happened, there was a big uptick in travel afterwards. So we always knew it was going to really grow. The question was then, how long is it for? And the answer is, well, we don't know. And so as a leadership team, we focused on a few really core principles. The key one being concreteness. So when we talk to the teams, we want to be talk about the concrete information we do know, not the speculation, not what you see in the press, not what you see on certain people's agendas. And a lot of it was using our own data to do that. And we could see the appetite for travel whenever something in the world happened. So there was a point where Boris Johnson said, we're going to open up by July. And the day after, we saw our UK traffic do a big spike. And so we knew the appetite was there. So it was really trying to lead through that, look at adjacencies to our products. You know, so really, again, our focuses were concreteness, our team and our team's health to get through it, and then our users as well, knowing that our users were going to come out of it. And as we're going into lockdowns, every country was different, every country had different rules. No one was putting this together as in one spot. And so we knew that was an unmet customer need. And so while it wasn't a core part of our business at the time, it was an adjacency that we knew we needed to get into to be able to help serve our users. And it was even more important as countries got better at the vaccines and were starting to open up, to be able to help people understand, well, how can I get around? Where can I go? Can I see my family member now? It wasn't necessarily just about the holiday maker that was the typical Rancheria user. It was about those people wanting to go home and meet their family again. Can I actually get there or not? So they were asking different questions, and sort of leading through that was really around those three key principles around concreteness of information, looking after our people, and then looking after our users.
Just a quick, really resonated with me what you were saying about not getting sucked into speculation. I mentioned Warren Buffett earlier, and he always talks about his process as being really, really simple. It just requires discipline. The first discipline is to lock yourself in a room for 6 hours a day and read financial data, but the other discipline is to pay absolutely no attention whatsoever to public opinion, which is completely meaningless. So, but I wanted to ask you actually, we were talking earlier about dress rehearsals, and
He's clearly, just for a minute, a finance guy. Very interesting. Very different if you're in the experience economy, in which case, spend all your time listening to the opinion of people.
right. Interesting. No, that makes sense. Makes sense. But you sometimes, there's so much negativity in media, and sometimes I wonder, if obviously a recession or a downturn is going to happen anyway, but I wonder how much it's exacerbated by the negativity that it is sort of distributed by the media. Because people hear, oh my God, we're in a downturn, we're in a recession. Hold on to your money. Don't go out and spend it. Contract. You know what I mean? I don't know.
We were talking about this the other day, weren't we? Is the stock market a logical tool or an emotional tool? And a hedging tool. It's got some of course, it's got some logic. It's based on some data, but it's also open to the free market with completely different levels of knowledge of what to do in the stock market. So of course, it's open to human emotion and fear and groupthink and all the things.
Yeah.
Algorithms.
Absolutely.
I do not play in public. I don't invest in public markets or in private markets. So my view is not investment advice. and not an expert, but like when one of the sort of comments, even before this before this last big rise, was how do you justify private valuations? What will happen when they get in front of irrational investors? Tell me who they are. They're not public markets. They're rational, are they? They're the rational markets. Like these exactly like these are not. If they're purely rational, we wouldn't have the big spikes and wouldn't have the big crashes.
Right.
So there is your question about the media, the mood of the media. I think our relationship with media has changed a lot. Certainly since social media, but also in the last few years around our trust in institutions. And markets are a mood, and I think the mood is less dictated by mainstream media now than it ever has been before. So it's sort of, where does it get into that? Our experiences, I love spending time with corporate Australia, and a little bit different to what we were talking about before, but in our world it's all about valuations crashing and access to capital and all these sort of challenges that startups are seeing. And I go and speak to the big end of town, record low unemployment, massive consumer confidence, spending like crazy. Like, they're hiring like crazy. There's no downturn. So valuations are not the economy. So your question before, is there a link? We do have concerns in the economy, but like Australia's a very vulnerable economy, probably because it's too focused on too few sectors. But those sectors are booming. We probably, dangerous to say, we probably don't have a recession here. US is already in a recession. Europe's got its own. So our mood is actually dictated by the people around us, and the people around us are actually doing really well.
Okay.
Alex, when we caught up on earlier in the week, you were telling a story about how one of the companies who's had a valuation and share price tanking has actually had its record ever revenue and profit. Ever. But it's still dropped massively in terms of the share price. So that's when people get involved. It's not rational. Yeah.
That's what makes it so interesting. It's fascinating. So many rabbit holes to go down. Craig, you were sharing some of your previous experiences and how you're applying them now. I guess everyone in this room, we've all, this isn't our first rodeo, right? Like we've been through this before. I guess the last real recession in Australia was probably 91, 92. And then of course we had the GFC, which I would sort of describe as more of a downturn. What lessons did you all learn during those moments that you can bring to the table now? I think, Craig, you were at Yahoo at the time, if I'm not mistaken. Alex, I think you were at Gartner.
I was in a startup that had its investment away.
Okay.
It's not my story.
Okay.
But yes, why don't you start?
So I've been around for a while. So I was massively impacted during the dot-com bubble, where the company I worked for did go bust and was acquired by other companies. One of the other sort of major telcos in Australia. Do you mean that one, or do you want me to ask? I was massively impacted by that. GFC sailed right through it. It was as if nothing had really happened. Then COVID massively impacted by it. So it's not really, it may hit some people sometimes, but not sometimes you're fine. And you were massively impacted during the GFC where we hardly noticed it.
Yeah. So I was in the very sensitive early stage of the ad tech side. And then my investors in America were startled by various things in GFC, and so that money went away. So my lesson was be afraid. And then I went into a business that bought brands. So I made the jump, and at the time, they're like, oh my God, hold on, I'm sitting on the other side. I get to buy all the Foundry fans. And so we spent time then buying a really beautiful, iconic Australian brand who lost their way, Jeep, and helping them turn around. And so it's a really kind of depends on where you're sitting during that period. What about you?
So I entered the workforce in the late 90s. So saw the dot-com crash. I'd actually built a PR practice, and all the money went to PR and dot-coms. And actually, was very fortunate because all my friends in PR who were doing dot-com work were all getting paid in options rather than cash. and I was too proud to ask anyone what options were. I didn't know. I'll move on to a different adjacency. But no, like, I think and then yeah, all the various ups and downs since then. Like, I think this is there are some things in our world, you're making bets and you're going to get some wrong. And our attitude towards risk and failure is, I still think, under development in this country. Like, yeah. So I often get asked, like, what are the biggest failures? There's so many. Back companies didn't work, campaigns didn't work, like all kinds of stuff. Like, they're all just building blocks. Like, it's easy to say when you're a founder, you've got it all on the line and it goes wrong. I think being able to move fast, like, it's a little bit like we talked about boards before. So, what do you need around you? The easiest thing as a founder is to build a narrative. Because we've all got our internal narratives. Is build a narrative that actually is overly self-serving. I think you need a self-serving narrative, otherwise you don't get out of bed some days. But there's in Jim Collins' Good to Great, it's old now, it's sort of amazing.
Awesome.
And he talks about the there's the paradigm of the guy who was in the Stockdale
paradox.
And it's like, you must never lose sight and lose your belief that you will win, right? Never lose faith, but never kid yourself exactly how much shit you're in right now. And that's just something like, it's a move fast, don't kid yourself. And some things are unavoidable, and try and make sure that things that are most precious to you are protected in those circumstances.
Absolutely. If you haven't read that book, it's very, very, very applicable to what's going on right now. I really recommend it.
Apparently he's bringing out a follow-up.
Yeah.
It's 20 years, over 20 years old now.
Yeah. Set aside at least a month or so to get through it, but it's.
The audio, do the audio, do it 1.5.
Yeah.
Amazing. I'm just going to jump in with the microphone.
Yeah.
Just conscious of time. Would the audience like to ask one or maybe two more questions to squeeze in? I think we've talked quite a lot today. It's been an awesome chat. Has anyone got any other questions?
We might have to do the next one on the same topic.
Yeah, lots to talk about. Well, I'd just like to say, Will, thank you for being the MC today.
No worries.
It's the first time I've seen you not talk as much, which is great. It means the audience were participating, so we solved that issue from the last one. A big thank you and a round of applause, please, to Craig, Alex, and Paul. And again, thank you to the audience. It's great to see everyone asking questions and participating. That's what this event is all about. We thank you for coming. The next event will be in October, so please watch out on Meetup and the other social channels. If you could kindly, there's a QR code over there. It's a really short survey. If you can just add your feedback, just so we can, constantly evolve ELX. And a final thank you to Katie for being my right-hand woman and helping me for today's event. So without further ado, have a great evening and thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And please help yourself to pizza and there's still drink if you would like some. Thank you.